Brendan Dassey Trial Transcript Day 4, continuing on page 170. Now, you indicated you made no notes at the time of the interview, correct? Correct. You produced the supplement report that we talked about sometime after that, right? Yes. So if it was dated 11/11, about 5 days later? Yes. Okay, and you didn't use your handy-dandy little digital recorder that you had up on the visor to make notes of this interaction with Brendan on the way back to either your home or wherever you left when you did leave to help you prepare the report, right? No. So you're having to rely entirely upon your memory when you described his demeanor, correct? Yes. Okay, and that's about 16 months ago, right? Yes. Okay, but you acknowledge there's nothing at all in your report about his demeanor? No. Isn't it true that the first individual to state or suggest that Teresa Halbach went into the Stephen Avery trailer was a police officer, as far as your interactions with Brendan on this date? Yes. Okay, so it's not something that he came up with in response to a question that, well, for example, I saw her when I got off the bus and I saw her go into the house. Correct. Okay, that notion or that concept was promoted to him somewhat of a theme throughout this interview, wasn't it? No. You don't agree with that? No. All right, but you acknowledge that it was a police officer who first brought that alleged fact up, brought the question to him. Okay, in fact, it happened more than once, didn't it? That very notion that she went into the trailer? I believe the question was brought up through more than once. Yes. Do you understand the difference between an open-ended question and a leading question, don't you? Yes. Every time that that concept was brought up, i.e., she went into the trailer, it was done in a leading and suggestive fashion. Agree or disagree? Attorney Fallon, I'm going to object to that question. It's vague as asked. There's a specific legal definition for a leading question under Sarinsky case, and then there's a whole psychological concept. So I don't know that we're doing here, but the court. Well, you're objecting. You're objecting to the foundation. I take it, and Attorney Fallon, foundation and the manner. Attorney Edelstein, Attorney Fallon, in which the question is asked. The court, all right, objection is sustained. Attorney Edelstein, just let me do it this way. When you're conducting an interview, you oftentimes lead the interviewee, correct? Know what I'm saying, don't you? Well, I believe I do, except that, as Mr. Fallon suggested and brought forward, your definition and mine is different. Pardon me? Your perception of leading question and what I may use as a question is different. If a question suggests the answer, do you think it's leading? Yes. During the course of the contact with Brendan, when he was questioned, if he'd asked the question, and I make reference, for example, to page 31, about halfway down, Brendan, she went into the trailer, didn't she? Is that a leading question or is it not a leading question? Yes. It is a leading question? Yes. Correct? Mm-hmm. All right, that's all for now. Thank you. The court. Any redirect, counsel? Attorney Fallon. Yes, a few questions. Thank you. Counsel asked you about promises, inducements. For you, as a detective, did you make any promises or inducements to Mr. Dassey in order to get him to speak with you? Not at all. All right, and now as the concept of promise that you had in your mind in response to counsel's question on promises? No, it is not. No, I mean the concept. When he asked you about promises, you said you made no promises. Is that what you meant when you said no, we didn't make any promises? Attorney Edelstein, asked and answered and suggestive, Your Honor. Attorney Fallon, he's clarifying. First of all, under 906.11c, a leading question in redirect examination to clarify a point on cross-examination is permitted. Number two, this witness clearly has just indicated he was uncertain as to the nature of my question, and I'm attempting to restructure and direct it. The court, that's fair. You may ask the question in that fashion. Attorney Fallon, do you understand? I'm trying to. I believe that got a little confused with what he was trying to explain before, my difference of it, and I'll try to get back on track as to what my reason was. Go ahead, sir. All right, when he was asking you what a promise is, what did you understand him to mean? Let's get at it that way. Promises that I wouldn't do this in exchange for that. All right, now did you make promises to him during the interview? For instance, you promised to take him home? Correct. All right, and you said he could leave if he wanted to? Correct. All right, now let's talk a little bit about the statement, the deceptive practice regarding the need for medical attention. You indicated that that was a common practice in a missing persons case. Tell us about that. It's probative type questions. Well, what do you hope to gain? I mean, what's the idea behind suggesting that somebody may have a medical need when you're trying to locate Why do you ask that? Being probative. If his answers would have been something to the effect, well, I think I could help her, or I really want to see her get medication, or I don't think she needs it now, it gives us an idea. Trying to determine as to whether or not, is she alive, is she injured, is she not? All right. Would it be fair to say you were appealing to a sense of emotion on the part of the person? Probing into that venue, yes. Counsel also asked about your efforts and Detective Baldwin's efforts to suggest that perhaps Teresa was in Stephen's trailer. Do you recall that? Yes. All right. And I believe you indicated that tact was taken on more than one occasion in the interview. Yes. All right. At any point did Mr. Dassey adopt that and say, yeah, that happened? No. So he resisted that suggestion very firmly. You were asked about a picture. Do you know if you had a picture of the missing persons report, a poster, or a card? I'm trying to recall, but I think we had a missing person case a month before. Wisconsin has a website. I think we might have yanked a picture or a poster off of it. All right, so you can't recall particularly this case versus the last case, the missing person you worked on, as to which picture you may have had? No, I can't, but I think Detective Baldwin could clear that up. All right, I'm going to have another photograph marked and shown to you. Exhibit 204 marked for identification. Do you recognize the people which are depicted in that photograph? Yes, I do. And who is depicted in that photograph? Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey, I think it's Al Avery, and Al's wife, Mrs. Avery, I think Carol, Barb, that's her. All right, and are those the individuals that you spoke with on Saturday and Sunday, November 5 and November 6? Yes. All right, and now counsel asked your questions about leaving the property so early. In other words, sunset on Saturday evening. What caused you to leave Saturday evening? Mr. Avery, Al Avery, was intoxicated and riding around in a golf cart and told us to get off his property or he'd shoot us. All right, so you left? We left the Avery property and just maintained on the road. All right, and thus you resumed your investigation the next day? Correct. All right, and the next day was Mr. Avery more receptive? Yes. All right, and cooperative? Yes. All right, and thus you were able to continue with the investigation on Sunday? With the interview of Stephen Avery initially, yes. All right, particularly with respect to the picture of Brendan Dassey in, I think, Exhibit 204 it is? Yes. All right, is that a fair depiction of his physical appearance and attributes at or around the time of this interview on November 6th? Yes. In other words, he appears to be a little heavier in that photograph than he does. Attorney Edelstein, Your Honor. Attorney Fallon, today. Attorney Edelstein, object to the leading nature. The court, overruled. Answer, yes. Attorney Fallon, all right. Do you recognize the location of that picture? I believe so. And what is it? It's the Avery cabin located in the town of Stevenson, I believe. I was in there once, and the table and the furnishings look familiar. All right, one last question. Counsel asked you, in response to my questions about assessing Mr. Dassey's demeanor, does the playing of the audio tape assist in recollecting his demeanor during the course of the interview? Definitely. Attorney Fallon, no further questions. Would offer the exhibit. The court, any objection to the exhibit? Attorney Edelstein, no, that's fine, Your Honor. The court, all right, the exhibit is received. I think that's 204. Yep. May we publish the exhibit then on the Elmo? Sure. Thank you. Any records? Attorney Edelstein, any recross? Attorney Edelstein, just very briefly. Detective, while they get that up on the screen so the jury can see that picture, where did that picture come from? Do you know? No, I do not. Pardon me? No, I do not. All right. Mr. Fallon asked you if that fairly depicted the condition, demeanor of the defendant, but he's sitting at the kitchen. I'm sorry, the physical attributes. When you talked to him, you didn't get any information from him about height, weight, anything like that, did you? No. Okay. Other than that hour and 20-minute contact, that's really the extent of your total contact with him throughout your participation in this investigation, right? Yes. That's all. Attorney Edelstein, Your Honor, we move 202 and 203. The court, any objection to receiving the exhibits numbers 202 and 203? Attorney Fallon, we would move for their admission. The court, well, it's already been offered by the defense. Oh, I'm asking if you have any objection. I'm sorry, I thought, all right, obviously we don't. The court, all right, they're received. You may step down. Thank you, Your Honor. Attorney Fallon, I think it's too late to start our next witness. He'll be a lengthy witness. The court, can't we start it and at least get some testimony now? Attorney Fallon, we can if you wish. The court, let's do it. Attorney Fallon, state would call Investigator Wiegert. The court, I think before he testifies and is sworn in, there's another trial stipulation that is to be published. Is that correct? Attorney Kratz, yes. Attorney Fallon, I believe that's true. The court, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I reminded you before that trial stipulations were evidence and should be treated as such. This trial stipulation reads as follows. Number 1, on October 31, 2005, Angela Schuster was the manager for Auto Trader magazine with headquarters in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. On the same date, Dawn Pliska performed duties as receptionist for Auto Trader. Number 2, that if called to testify, Angela Schuster would testify that Teresa Halbach was hired as a photographer for Auto Trader in October 2004 and continued in that employment through October 31, 2005. Schuster would further state that Teresa Halbach had performed photo shoots at the Avery salvage business on 5 occasions prior to October 31 in 2005, including June 20 and October 22, June 20, August 22, August 29, September 19, and October 10. Number 3, that if called to testify, Dawn Pliska would testify that on October 31, 2005, she received a phone call from Stephen Avery at approximately 8:12 a.m., at which time Avery requested that, quote, the same girl that had been out here before, end quote, come to his property to take photos of a van he had for sale. Pliska would further state that Avery made the appointment under the name, quote, B. Yonda, end quote, and that Pliska left a voicemail for Teresa Halbach at 9:46 a.m. asking if she could make that appointment. Number 4, that if called to testify, Dawn Pliska would further testify that at 2:27 p.m. she did speak with Teresa Halbach on Teresa's cell phone, at which time Ms. Halbach indicated that she was, quote, on her way, end quote, to the Avery property from her previous appointment. That is the entirety of that stipulation. It will be marked as Exhibit 205. First, to the state, is that your stipulation? Attorney Fallon, it is. To the defense, is that your stipulation? Attorney Freeman, that's correct. All right, it's received. State will continue with Investigator Mark Wiegert. Mark Wiegert, called as a witness herein, having been first duly sworn, was examined and testified as follows. The clerk, please be seated. Please state your name and spell your last name. Explain for the record. The witness, Mark Wiegert, W-I-E-G-E-R-T. Direct examination by Attorney Fallon. How are you employed? I'm an investigator with the Calumet County Sheriff's Department. How long have you been employed by the Calumet County Sheriff's Department? Approximately 14 years. How long have you held the rank of investigator? It will be about 5 years. And what are generally the types of cases that you've been asked to investigate in your capacity at the Sheriff's Department? In our department, we do a wide variety of complaints, anything from thefts to burglaries to missing persons complaints, death investigations, up to homicide investigations. All right, and in this particular case, how is it that you are involved in this case? I happened to be working on, in November, I believe it was November 3 to be exact, one of our patrol deputies had taken a phone call, or actually a complaint about a missing person complaint. It was actually Karen Halbach had called our department to report that her daughter was missing and they haven't heard from her in several days. After patrol deputy had taken the initial information, she had contacted me and requested my assistance in attempting to locate Teresa. All right, and from that point on, have you been involved in this case? I have, yes. Now, there's been some discussion, both Special Agent Fossbender and others, about your role as one of the lead investigators in this case. Tell us when that occurred. Sure. On November 5, when the vehicle was discovered on the Avery Salvage Yard property, we were requested by Manitowoc County to lead the investigation. At that point, when we realized how big and how massive the salvage yard was, not only the salvage yard, but all the residences, the outbuildings, all the property that surrounded it, we realized that it was a little more than our department could handle on its own. At that point, we contacted the Wisconsin Department of Justice and requested their assistance. And who responded on behalf of the Department of Justice? At that time, Agent Tom Fossbender, who you heard earlier in the week testify, did respond, as well as several other agents from the department. At that point, our department was handed the investigation, and myself and Agent Fossbender were named the lead investigators of this case.